There's a question we rarely ask, because it terrifies us. What if everything I experience this world, the people around me, even my own identity is not what it seems? What if it's constructed, manipulated, or worse, entirely false? This isn't just a question of science fiction. This is a question about the nature of reality itself. And if we dare to explore it, we might find that the world we live in is no less illusory than the Matrix from the famous film. But here's the thing, the idea of a matrix has been with us since the dawn of philosophy. The ancient Greeks wrestled with this question long before computers ever existed. Plato himself exposed the idea in his Allegory of the Cave, and through his work, he hinted at how we might break free. Let's think about Plato's cave for a moment. Imagine people chained in a dark cave, from birth unable to move their heads. All they can see are shadows projected on the wall in front of them. These shadows are cast by objects behind them, objects illuminated by a fire. The prisoners don't know this. To them, the shadows are reality. They've never seen anything else, so they can't even imagine a world beyond the shadows. Now picture one prisoner being freed. For the first time, they turn around and see the fire and the objects creating the shadows. They realize the shadows were just illusions. But that's not the end of it. The freed prisoner is dragged out of the cave into the light of the sun. At first, the sunlight blinds them. It's overwhelming. But slowly they adjust and begin to see the world as it truly is, full of color, depth, and life. This is where it gets interesting. For Plato, the cave isn't just a metaphor for ignorance. It's a metaphor for our lives. The shadows on the wall are the things we take for granted as reality, the images on our screens, the opinions we absorb from others, the beliefs we've never questioned. The chains are the habits, fears, and assumptions that keep us stuck in this illusion. And the matrix, as we understand it today, is just a modern version of Plato's cave. It's the system of control that keeps us locked in this false reality.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
But here's the heart of the problem. Most of us don't even know we're in the cave. And those who do suspect something is off often don't want to leave. Why? Because the cave is comfortable. It's familiar. Escaping it means confronting truths that are painful, even terrifying. It means questioning everything we think we know about ourselves, about society, about the universe. And that's not easy. But if you're still here, listening to this, it means you're ready to ask the hard questions. So let's start with this. How do you know the world you experience is real? You might say, well, I see it, I hear it, I touch it. It feels real, but do your senses tell you the truth? Or do they just interpret signals? Think about dreams. When you're dreaming, everything feels real until you wake up. So how do you know you're not dreaming right now? Descartes wrestled with this question centuries ago. He realized that the only thing he could be absolutely certain of was his own consciousness, I think. Therefore I am, but beyond that, everything was up for debate. Here's where it gets even deeper. Let's say the world is real, in some sense. But what about the version of reality you experience? Is it objective, or is it shaped by your mind? Neuroscience tells us that your brain doesn't perceive the world directly. It creates a model of the world based on sensory input. That model is useful, it helps you survive, but it's not the whole truth. It's like a map. A map helps you navigate, but it's not the territory. Now think about the implications of this. If your mind creates your version of reality, then escaping the matrix isn't just about breaking free from some external system of control. It's also about breaking free from the illusions within your own mind. And this is where Plato's wisdom becomes practical. He didn't just describe the cave, he showed us how to escape it. The first step is awareness. You have to realize that the shadows on the wall are just shadows. That means questioning everything you've been taught to believe. Not in a paranoid way, but in a thoughtful, critical way. Ask yourself, why do I believe what I believe? Where did these ideas come from? Are they based on evidence, or are they assumptions I've never questioned? The second step is courage. Escaping the cave or the matrix isn't easy. It means letting go of the familiar and stepping into the unknown. It means facing truths that are uncomfortable, even painful. And it means being willing to stand alone, because not everyone is ready to leave the cave. In Plato's Allegory, the freed prisoner doesn't just escape, they go back to the cave to help others. But the others often don't want to be helped. They cling to the shadows because that's all they know. So here's a question for you: if you discovered the truth, would you have the courage to live it? Even if it meant losing everything you thought you knew, even if it meant being misunderstood, rejected, or ridiculed. This is the ultimate test of freedom, not just the freedom to escape the matrix, but the freedom to live authentically, no matter the cost. The third step is vision. Once you've left the cave, you begin to see the world as it truly is. But this isn't just about seeing external reality. It's about seeing yourself. Who are you, really? Not who society says you should be, not who you pretend to be, but your true self. This is where the matrix and Plato's cave intersect with another ancient tradition, the idea of enlightenment. Enlightenment isn't just a mystical concept. It's a state of clarity, of seeing things as they are, without illusion. But here's the paradox: you can't force enlightenment. You can't break free from the matrix through sheer willpower. Why? Because the harder you try, the more you strengthen the chains. True freedom comes not from fighting the matrix, but from understanding it, from seeing how it works, both externally and internally. And from realizing that, in a sense, the matrix isn't out there, it's in your mind. Think about this: if you woke up tomorrow and discovered that you were living in a simulated reality, what would change? Would you live differently? Would you value different things? Or would you continue as before, because the simulation feels real enough? The truth is, most of us are so deeply conditioned by the matrix that we wouldn't know how to live outside it. And that's the real challenge. Escaping the matrix isn't just about waking up. It's about learning to live in a way that's free, authentic, and aligned with the truth. So how do we do that? How do we live outside the matrix? It starts with questioning the narratives that control us. Narratives about success, happiness, and meaning. Narratives about who we are and what we should want. These narratives are the shadows on the wall. They're not real, but they shape our lives in powerful ways. For example, think about the narrative of success. Society tells us that success means wealth, status, and achievement. But is that true? Or is it just a shadow, a projection of someone else's values? What if true success has nothing to do with external achievements, and everything to do with inner freedom? Or think about the narrative of happiness. We're told that happiness comes from pleasure, comfort, and the avoidance of pain. But is that true? Or is it just another shadow? What if true happiness comes from embracing life fully, even its struggles and sorrows? And then there's the narrative of identity. We're told who we are based on our roles, our labels, our pasts. But is that true? Or is it just another shadow? What if your true self is something deeper, something beyond all labels and roles? These are the questions we need to ask if we want to escape the matrix. But asking them is just the beginning. The real work is living the answers. And that requires a kind of radical honesty with ourselves and with the world. It requires us to let go of the need for approval, the fear of failure, and the attachment to comfort. It requires us to face the unknown, not with fear, but with curiosity and courage. So now I'll leave you with this challenge. Are you willing to question the shadows? Are you willing to turn around, to see the fire, to step out into the light? And if you are, what's stopping you? Is it fear? Is it doubt? Or is it something deeper, a part of you that's still clinging to the illusion? Because it's easier than facing the truth. If you're ready to go further, let's continue. But I'll warn you, the next step is even harder. It's where we confront the mechanisms of control, the systems, both external and internal, that keep us chained to the wall. And it's where we begin to see not just how to escape the matrix, but how to live outside it. Let's take a closer look at the chains. We talked about the shadows on the wall, the illusions, the narratives, the false constructs of the matrix. But what about the chains themselves? What is it that keeps us bound? What prevents us from turning around, from seeing the fire and walking out into the light? The first and most obvious chain is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of pain. Fear is the most effective mechanism of control ever devised. It doesn't need to be imposed from the outside, it lives within us. It whispers to us, keeping us small, keeping us in line, keeping us in the cave. And the worst part? Most of the time we don't even recognize it for what it is. We think we're being reasonable, practical, careful. But what we're really doing is avoiding the discomfort of freedom. Freedom is uncomfortable because it means responsibility. If you escape the matrix, there's no one left to blame, no system to hide behind, no excuses. You have to own your life completely, your choices, your actions, your consequences. That's terrifying, isn't it? It's easier to stay in the cave, to follow the script, to let someone else decide what's real and what's important. But here's the irony: the fear of freedom is itself an illusion. Think about the things you're afraid of. How many of them are real right now in this moment? And how many of them are projection stories your mind has created about what might happen, but hasn't happened yet? Fear thrives on these stories. It feeds on what if, but if you bring your attention fully into the present moment, the fear begins to lose its power. So here's a practical question: what are you afraid of right now? And how much of that fear is based on reality? And how much is based on a story? I'm not asking you to deny your fear or suppress it. I'm asking you to see it for what it is: a chain. And once you see it, you can begin to loosen its grip. The second chain is desire. Not desire in the sense of wanting something meaningful, but desire in the sense of craving, endless, insatiable craving. The matrix is built on this. It feeds you images of what you should want: the perfect body, the perfect partner, the perfect lifestyle, the perfect career. It tells you that happiness is always just one purchase, one promotion, one achievement away. But no matter how much you get, it's never enough. Why? Because the matrix doesn't just create desires, it creates addictions. Think about it. When you satisfy a craving, how long does the satisfaction last? A moment? An hour? A day? And then what happens? The craving comes back, stronger than before. This isn't a coincidence, it's by design. The matrix keeps you chasing shadows, always looking for fulfillment outside yourself, so you never stop to question the system itself. But here's the truth: as long as your happiness depends on external things, you will never be free. Because those things can be taken away. And even if you get everything you think you want, you'll still feel that emptiness inside, that nagging sense that something's missing. That's why people who seem to have it all often feel the most trapped. They've achieved the dream, only to realize it was an illusion. So what's the alternative? How do you break free from the chain of desire? It's not about giving up on life or rejecting pleasure. It's about understanding that true fulfillment doesn't come from the outside, it comes from within. This isn't just a cliche, it's a profound shift in perspective. When you stop chasing shadows, you begin to see the light. And that brings us to the third chain: ignorance. Not ignorance in the sense of lacking knowledge, but ignorance in the sense of forgetting who you are. The matrix works because it convinces you that you're small, powerless, incomplete. It convinces you that you need the system to survive, that you need external validation to have worth, that you need more of this or less of that to be whole. But who are you really? Are you your body, your thoughts, your beliefs, your memories, or are you something deeper, something beyond all of that? This question isn't just philosophical, it's practical. Because as long as you believe you're just the roles you play, the labels you wear, the story you tell yourself, you'll stay trapped in the matrix. You'll keep looking for meaning and identity in the shadows instead of in the light. So how do we break this chain of ignorance? It starts with self-inquiry. Not in a superficial way, but in a deep, relentless way. Ask yourself, who am I? And don't settle for easy answers. Keep asking, peeling back the layers until you reach something undeniable. And when you do, you'll realize something incredible: the matrix doesn't have power over you. It never did. The chains were never real. They were illusions created by your own mind, and the moment you see them for what they are, they dissolve. But here's the catch: seeing the truth isn't enough. You have to live it. And that's the hardest part, because even when you've glimpsed the light, the shadows can still pull you back. The matrix is seductive. It offers comfort, convenience, and the illusion of certainty. And living outside it means embracing uncertainty, discomfort, and the unknown. It never did. The chains were never real. They were illusions created by your own mind, and the moment you see them for what they are, they dissolve. But here's the catch: seeing the truth isn't enough. You have to live it. And that's the hardest part, because even when you've glimpsed the light, the shadows can still pull you back. The matrix is seductive. It offers comfort, convenience, and the illusion of certainty. And living outside it means embracing uncertainty, discomfort, and the unknown. But the others don't want to be helped. They resist. They mock. They even become hostile. Why? Because the truth threatens their entire worldview. And that's painful. So if you've ever tried to share your insights with someone, only to be met with resistance or ridicule, don't be discouraged. It's not that they're incapable of seeing the light, it's that they're not ready. And that's okay. Your job isn't to drag them out of the cave. Your job is to live in the light, to embody the truth, and to be a beacon for those who are ready to follow. But here's the paradox: the more you try to escape the matrix, the more you realize it's everywhere. It's not just in the systems of control out there, it's in your own mind. It's in your thoughts, your habits, your attachments, your fears. And so the real question isn't how do I escape the matrix? The real question is how do I transcend it? And that leads us to the final part. Because escaping the matrix isn't the end of the journey, it's the beginning. The beginning of a life lived in freedom, authenticity, and truth. But what does that look like? And how do we navigate a world that's still trapped in shadows? Once you've seen the matrix for what it is, once you've turned away from the shadows and glimpsed the fire, the question becomes, how do you live in the light? How do you navigate a world that is still steeped in illusion, still bound by chains, when you've begun to taste freedom? This is where the real work begins, and it's where most people falter. Because escaping the matrix is not a single moment of awakening, it's an ongoing process, a way of being that requires vigilance, courage, and clarity. Let's start with one of the most difficult truths. Even after you've awakened, the matrix doesn't disappear. The illusions will still surround you. The shadows on the wall will still flicker, and the chains will still tempt you. The matrix, after all, is not just a system out there, it's the patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior that have been deeply ingrained in you. It's the voice in your head that doubts, that clings, that craves. Escaping the matrix means facing that voice, not once, but every single day. So how do you do it? How do you live in the light without being pulled back into the shadows? The first step is learning to see clearly. This means developing a kind of inner vision, a way of perceiving the world and yourself that cuts through illusion. Most of us see the world through filters, cultural filters, personal filters, emotional filters. These filters shape our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions. But they also distort reality. They make us see what we want to see, or what we fear to see, rather than what is. To live in the light, you have to see beyond the filters. This requires a practice of awareness, becoming deeply conscious of your own mind. Start noticing your thoughts, not in a judgmental way, but in a curious, investigative way. Notice the stories your mind tells you. Notice the assumptions, the fears, the desires, and then ask yourself, are these stories true? Are these thoughts serving me, or are they part of the matrix? This practice of awareness is not easy. Your mind will resist. It will distract you, justify itself, even try to convince you that questioning it is dangerous. Why? Because the mind is invested in the matrix. The matrix is comfortable. It's predictable. It gives the mind a sense of control. And questioning it feels like stepping into chaos. But here's the paradox: that chaos is where freedom begins. The next step is letting go. Letting go of what? Of everything that keeps you bound. Letting go of the need to be right. Letting go of the need to control. Letting go of the need for approval, for validation, for certainty. These needs are the chains that keep you tethered to the matrix. And they are deeply, deeply ingrained. Think about it. How much of your life is driven by these needs? How much of your time and energy is spent trying to prove yourself to others or to yourself? How often do you avoid taking risks or speaking your truth because you're afraid of what people might think? And how often do you cling to beliefs, even when they no longer serve you, because letting go feels too uncertain? Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent. It means releasing your attachment to the illusions of the matrix. It means trusting that you don't need to control everything, that you don't need to have all the answers, that you don't need to be anyone other than who you truly are. And that brings us to the heart of living in the light: authenticity. To live outside the matrix is to live authentically, in alignment with your true self. But what does that mean? It means stripping away the layers of conditioning, the roles and masks you've been taught to wear, and discovering who you are at your core. Not who you think you should be, not who society expects you to be, but who you are when all the illusions fall away. This is not an intellectual exercise. It's a process of self-discovery, and it's often uncomfortable. Because when you start peeling back the layers, you'll encounter parts of yourself that you've been avoiding: the fears, the insecurities, the wounds. But these are not obstacles. They are gateways. They are the parts of yourself that need to be integrated, healed, and loved. Living authentically also means living with integrity. It means aligning your actions with your values, even when it's hard. It means speaking your truth, even when it's unpopular. It means staying true to yourself, even when the world tries to pull you back into the matrix. And this is where the real challenge lies, because the matrix is persistent. It will test you, tempt you, and try to drag you back. You'll notice this in your relationships. When you start living authentically, some people will celebrate you. Others will resist you. Why? Because your authenticity threatens their illusions. It challenges their comfort. It forces them to confront the shadows they've been avoiding. And not everyone is ready for that. So how do you navigate this? How do you live authentically in a world that often values conformity over truth? The answer is love. Not the superficial love of sentimentality, but the deep, unwavering love that sees through the illusions. Love for yourself, first and foremost, because without self-love, you'll always be vulnerable to the matrix. And love for others, even those who are still trapped in the cave. But here's the thing about love: it's not always easy. Love doesn't mean agreeing with everyone or tolerating everything. It means seeing the truth in others, even when they can't see it themselves. It means holding space for their growth, without losing yourself in the process. And it means recognizing that at the deepest level, we're all in this together. This brings us to the final and perhaps most profound aspect of living in the light service. Escaping the matrix is not just about freeing yourself. It's about helping others see the truth. But this doesn't mean preaching, persuading, or trying to fix people. It means living as an example. It means embodying the light so that others can see it in you. Plato's freed prisoner didn't return to the cave to drag the others out by force. They returned to share what they had seen, to point to the truth, to offer a way out for those who were ready. And this is what true service looks like. It's not about imposing your truth on others. It's about shining so brightly that others are inspired to seek the light themselves. But here's the paradox: the more you try to help others, the more you'll realize that they are not separate from you. The matrix thrives on division, on the illusion that we are separate, isolated individuals. But when you live in the light, you begin to see through this illusion. You begin to see that the same light that shines in you shines in everyone. You begin to see that the matrix is not something to be fought or defeated, it's something to be transcended. And this is the ultimate freedom: to live in the world but not be of it, to see the shadows but not be fooled by them, and to walk among the chains but not be bound by them, to engage with the matrix not as its prisoner but as its master. So let me leave you with this: the matrix is real, but so is the light. The chains are strong, but they are not unbreakable. The shadows are convincing, but they are not the truth. And you, no matter how trapped you may feel, are not powerless. The key to freedom is within you. It always has been. But freedom is not something I can give you. It's not something anyone can give you. It's something you must claim for yourself. And that begins with one simple, profound question: are you ready to turn around? If you are, then step into the light. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Because the light is always here, waiting for you. The only question is, will you see it?